Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 163, The Bug Stops Here. The episode begins with Ash and the gang making their way to Ash's 4th gym battle in Ecotreek City, but along the way, they arrive at a national park. Not a forest this time, guys. And it's there that they spot an announcer who tells them that the bug catching contest was about to start. Ash then asks the man why the fuck he was dressed in a Venomoth costume, with the man just claiming that he wanted to get into the spirit of the contest. Ash then questions if there was a prize for winning the contest, because, otherwise it wouldn't be worth it, and the announcer confirms that the winner gets a Sunstone, as well as whatever bug Pokemon the person captures along the way. Now, I don't know what plans Ash had for the Sunstone. It's not like he has any Pokemon that can currently evolve from it, but regardless, he decides to enter, even though Misty doesn't want him to, since she hates bug types. Ash then reveals the real reason why he wanted to join, which was to catch a bug type, but really, couldn't you just catch a bug type without entering the contest? Although maybe he didn't want the Sunstone. Despite Misty's reluctance, Ash still heads in and begins to register for the contest, and while in line, he encounters none other than Casey. That's right, she was more than just a random character of the day as well. As soon as Brock spots her, he immediately compliments her Chikorita on looking even stronger, with Casey reasoning that it was because she had been on a winning streak ever since her loss against Ash. Also taking the time to excitedly add that Team Electabuzz had been on a winning streak too, and she was so excited by this that she decides to sing the Electabuzz's new victory song, which pisses Ash off a little bit, as he still didn't like Team Electabuzz that much. Realizing that both her and Ash were standing in line, Casey was now determined to beat Ash in the contest, no matter what. With Ash, of course, sharing the opposite sentiment. He was going to beat Casey. Which one would win? Let's find out. But first, we have a scene from Team Rocket, who of course were also wanting to enter the contest, since they figured that they could use the opportunity to enter the national park there and capture a lot of the Pokemon. However, unfortunately for them, the announcer informs them that only people 16 and under were allowed to enter the contest. Team Rocket don't give up, though, and proceed to throw on some school disguises and claim that they were 12 and 13 years old. Damn, this must be the worst crime that they've ever committed. Like pretending to be minors? Holy shit. Thankfully, though, this disguise still doesn't fool the announcer, and he still denies them. Jessie was already fuming at this point, but then her Wobbuffet came out of its Pokeball forcibly, so she angrily hit it the fuck away, but not before ordering it to try and attack the announcer, and although it didn't have any attacks, it was still able to capture the announcer, and this put him down so that Jessie and James could tie him up. Jessie then questions how the fuck their disguises didn't work, asking everyone else in line if she really looked older than 16. Everyone else in line tries to ignore her, but James in Meowth says that she looks just like a big baby due to how upset she was getting. This leads Jessie to knock them the fuck out, just as she did with her Wobbuffet. Anyways, with Team Rocket unable to get in, the registration finishes, and the rules of the bug catching contest are explained. You could only use one Pokemon to battle the bug Pokemon, and you also had to use a specific Pokeball, being a Park Ball, to capture any Pokemon you found. The winner of the contest would be determined by whoever had the strongest bug type. The tournament officials then give everyone the Park Ball that was needed, and the tournament officially begins, as Ash and Casey run off with everyone else. As for Brock and Misty, they were watching from the stands, and there was a huge screen, so you could choose to watch a whole bunch of competitors. So they essentially had little cameras set up all over the park. While watching the screens, Misty worries that there were probably some bug Pokemon nearby, and Brock's like, yeah, no shit, why would they have a bug catching contest here if there was no bug Pokemon? Sure enough, Brock is proved right, as Misty spots a Weedle on the screen, and it comes right up to it, which freaks her the fuck out. This Weedle was the same one that Ash then encountered, and he tried to have Pikachu use Thunderbolt on it to weaken it. However, right at that moment, Casey then jumped in front of Ash and told her Chikorita to use Razor Leaf, which weakened it first, allowing Casey to make the catch, much to Ash's complaints that he was there first, so he should have got to catch it. Casey rebuttals, though, that she was just trying to be like the awesome Team Electabuzz, as they always stole home base in baseball, and therefore she wanted to steal Pokemon from people, although not literally. She then also says that Team Electabuzz always swings for the fences, which just makes Ash confused, as he doesn't understand baseball. Even though he claimed that he didn't like Team Electabuzz, how do you not like a baseball team if you don't understand baseball? Anyways, with Ash not understanding what Casey just said, she decides to take her leave and look for a stronger Pokemon, because, Weedle definitely wasn't going to win the goddamn contest. As for Brock and Misty, they were watching this whole encounter between Ash and Casey on the screen, although at least Brock was, as Misty was too scared upon seeing the Weedle, and hid behind a tree instead. Brock insists that she watches, especially when Misty was constantly interrupting, trying to ask Brock what was going on. Misty's questions are then interrupted, though, when she sees her Togepi playing with a Caterpie, and she immediately fears for Togepi and slaps the Caterpie away in anger with her bag. Damn, poor Caterpie, it just wanted to play. And then poor Spinarak, too, because a Spinarak then came out of a nearby tree and went up to play with Togepi, only to get slapped by Misty as well, and the Spinarak almost flies into Brock's face. Damn. Meanwhile, with Team Rocket having captured the announcer, they had managed to actually break in to the national park, and essentially join the contest anyways, although not obviously officially. James then got the idea to pull the Venomoth costume off of the knocked-out announcer and have Jessie get inside it so that she could look like a Venomoth and lure one to them so they could catch it. Jessie bitterly questions why she had to do the hard job of being the bait for the Venomoth, with James convincing her by stating it was because she was so beautiful that she could attract the Venomoth. This causes her to gas herself up a little bit as she talks about how beautiful she is. And right as she tells herself that there was no way a Venomoth could resist her beauty, sure enough, a Venomoth shows up. Jessie tries her best to influence it with her beauty, but the Venomoth isn't impressed and simply flies away. Realizing that Jessie was a fake Venomoth, as punishment, the Venomoth leaves behind a trail of its stun spore, which paralyzes Team Rocket and knocks them to the ground. This leads James and Meowth to reveal that they had a plan B, and that it was time to enact it, as their first plan obviously didn't fucking work. Meanwhile, Casey had decided to look for some bug Pokemon by having her Chikorita use Tackle on some trees, and sure enough, this caused several Pineco to fall out. Ash finds Casey yet again, and advises her that bug Pokemon had an advantage over grass types, so she probably wouldn't do very well. Casey assures him that she already knew this, and takes out the Pineco anyways, showing how strong Chikorita was to be able to take out a Pokemon that it was weak against. However, Chikorita wasn't invincible, so it was left severely exhausted from winning this battle. Casey didn't realize this, and simply continued on her way, separating from Ash once again, as the tired Chikorita followed. As for Misty and Brock, they were still watching all this from the screen, and commented on how good Casey's Chikorita was, although this did worry Misty that Ash may actually not be able to win the contest, stating that if she was going to put herself at risk of potentially surrounding herself with bug Pokemon, then she wanted Ash to at least get something out of it and win the contest. As if on cue, several Caterpie then appear behind her, and this freaks her the fuck out yet again as she hits them away. Meanwhile, back with Casey and Chikorita, Casey had finally realized that her Chikorita was tired as fuck, but didn't care about this, simply wanting to win the contest, and demanded that Chikorita continue on. They continue on until they proceed to spot a Scyther in a nearby bush, and this obviously excites Casey, as Scyther was way rarer than a goddamn Beedrill or Pineco, so she orders Chikorita to attack, despite its exhaustion. Chikorita manages to get a Razor Leaf off, but then Scyther shakes it off and jumps at Chikorita, which injures it immensely. Casey still orders Chikorita to continue on though, and use another Razor Leaf, but Scyther uses its blades to deflect the Razor Leafs right back at Chikorita. Chikorita then makes a desperate jump of her own as she jumps on the Scyther, blinding it. But Scyther still continues to slash away at Chikorita, knocking it into a tree, so that Scyther could move in for the last attack. But at the last second, Ash then showed up and commanded Pikachu to use Thunderbolt, stunning the Scyther for a little bit. Ash takes the opportunity to tell Casey that what she was doing to Chikorita wasn't fair, explaining that it was already severely weakened from the battle with the Pineco, and she was still pushing it hard anyways. Before Casey can try and rebut though, the Scyther then becomes unstunned and tries to attack Chikorita once more, leading Ash to call the Scyther and distract it as he runs away, and the Scyther follows, saving Chikorita from pure annihilation. With Ash and the Scyther gone, Casey wanted to chase after it, and she still didn't see a problem with what she was doing to Chikorita, so she tried to convince it to still carry on, only to notice that Chikorita had disappeared. It had run away. Coincidentally, Misty notices that her Togepi had ran away as well, so she hurriedly goes to look for it, and it turns out that Togepi had ran off to find Chikorita after seeing how sad it looked to try and cheer it up. It managed to find it and tried its best to cheer it up, only for Misty and Brock to successfully find Chikorita and Togepi as well. Right as Misty noted how sad Chikorita looked, acting like it didn't want to be found, and I mean, it probably didn't, it was probably fucking done with Casey at this point, Casey herself then showed up. She told Chikorita to get back to her, but Chikorita refused. This leads Misty to have her suspicions confirmed that Chikorita was unhappy, and informs her that it was because she had pushed Chikorita way too hard that it was now angry, just as Ash had tried to explain to it. Casey finally fully takes this in, and finally realizes that she was being a real fucking cunt to Chikorita, and apologizes to it for caring about winning the contest more than Chikorita's well-being. Thankfully, Chikorita sees Casey's remorse and accepts her apology, jumping into her arms as they embrace. Aw, they're back to normal. This cheerful moment, though, was then interrupted as a Paris dropped on Brock's back, leading Misty to get freaked out and violently swing at it, almost hitting Casey in the process. Meanwhile, Ash and Pikachu were still following Scyther and had followed it into a bush. Unfortunately, while walking through the bush, they disturb a group of Scyther who try and attack. Ash tries to take the opportunity to catch one of the Beedrill, believing it to be rare enough, and throws his Park Ball at it, only for the Beedrill to deflect the ball. This leads Ash to try weakening the Beedrill first, so he has Pikachu use Thunderbolt as the Beedrill tries to attack yet again, and this weakens it enough so he can throw his Park Ball and successfully catch it, leading him and Pikachu to celebrate. However, right as they celebrate, they stumble into a hole dug by none other than Team Rocket, and right after they enter the hole, a cage then drops down on them, further trapping them. Obviously, Team Rocket were behind this, as this was their plan B, to capture Ash's Pikachu. They then reveal themselves and do their motto, and reveal that the cage was actually attached to their Meowth balloon as they proceed to pull it up. Pikachu tries his best to escape the cage by shocking it, but it turns out to be electric-proof, as he ends up shocking Ash instead. Thankfully, Casey, Brock, and Misty had noticed the Meowth balloon rising up in the distance and had come to Ash's rescue. Team Rocket instantly recognizes Casey as what they call the Pep Squad girl from the Electabuzz Losers. Casey gets more pissed off at them insulting Team Electabuzz than her, and tells them that they know absolutely nothing about baseball, which Meowth admits was true, but states that they didn't care and they still hated Team Electabuzz. Heh. Ash advises Casey to run away, believing that her Chikorita may be too weak to take on Team Rocket, but Casey refuses. She wanted revenge against them now, so she has her Chikorita use Razor Leaf, But the leaves were unfortunately too weak due to Chikorita's exhaustion, and this allowed Team Rocket to stop the leaves in their tracks by capturing them in a net. James then happily shouts that they made the catch in a reference to baseball to try and piss Casey off, but this actually just pisses Jessie off, as she hated baseball and didn't want to have to use any more baseball metaphors. Meowth then pulls out a remote control and presses a button, which unleashes a baseball-shaped missile from the Meowth balloon as it heads straight towards Ash and the gang and Casey. Well, I guess not Ash because he was in a cage, but, everyone else. Casey prepares to have her Chikorita attack the missile, and Chikorita was fully prepared to. However, right before the missile made contact, Chikorita evolved into Bayleaf. Yo! Ash instantly uses his Pokedex on the Bayleaf, as it manages to destroy the missile by unleashing plenty of Razor Leaves. Bayleaf then uses Razor Leaf a second time to break the cage that was holding Ash and Pikachu, allowing them to drop down to the ground, and for Ash to command Pikachu to use Thunderbolt, which sends Team Rocket blasting off as Wobbuffet pops out of his Pokeball yet again. Shortly after Team Rocket was dealt with, the contest had come to a close, and the winner was declared. It was none other than Ash. The Beedrill that he caught had been enough, and he therefore got the Sunstone as a reward. This means that all the other trainers had to release all their bug Pokemon that they caught from the park, aside from Ash, who was allowed to keep his Beedrill. However, when Casey comes up to Ash to congratulate him on winning, Ash decides to give his Beedrill to her, stating it was a thank you gift for saving him from Team Rocket, and also because Beedrill was one of the Pokemon that she wanted the most, because she wanted Pokemon that were yellow with black stripes. That's right, guys. Ash had a Beedrill, and he just gave it away after having it for like half an episode. Hey, at least Casey was immensely happy, though. She was practically crying with joy, and felt the need to repay Ash in some way, so she sung the Electabuzz victory song as best she could. However, despite it being her intention for this to be a return gift to Ash, Ash and the gang were not very amused by the Electabuzz victory song. Ash and the gang then take their leave on their way to Aquatique City, as Casey goes in the other direction, reminding them to cheer for Team Electabuzz. Yeah, I don't know about that.